What are you feeding your mind right now? If it's social media, are you tired of doom scrolling through the angry comment sections and political rants yet? What if you use that time to actually fix your marriage? Welcome to the free Married and Connected School community. It's like social media, but without the ads, without the judgment, and without the noise. Just real self-paced tools that get you out of that roommate phase starting today. Inside, you get an exact blueprint for a weekly State of the Union meeting with your spouse. We're cutting mental load, we're stopping miscommunications, and we're breaking that exhausting loop of doom argument once and for all. Plus, you get instant access to workshops on overcoming resentment and bringing the actual fun back into your marriage. We have a dedicated space just for guys jumping into Forging Fortitude. It's a 10-week intensive to help you step into your masculine leadership and become the husband and man that God called you to be. And for ladies joining Edifying Eden, we're stepping out of that controlling, nagging era into our soft, nurturing, feminine era, even if your husband hasn't taken the reins yet. Either way, you can take responsibility for your side of the street. Stop scrolling the internet and start investing in your home. The community is 100% free with options to purchase certain courses. Click the link in the show notes and join the Married and Connected School community today. I'll see you inside. Marriage isn't supposed to feel like roommates, but it doesn't have to feel like a war either. Hi, I'm Cameron Alaricky, certified marriage coach and a relationship expert. Every week on Married and Connected, I bring you real talk, hard truths, and practical tools you can start using right away. Whether you've been married 2 years or 42, this is where you'll find hope, encouragement, and steps that actually work. So let's make your marriage feel good again, starting right now. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Married and Connected podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Alaricky. Today we are tackling a conversation that is absolutely vital for our health, but it's also vital for our marriages and our careers, because navigating the demands of a high-achieving professional life is challenging enough. But when you add these unpredictable shifts of perimenopause and menopause into the mix, it feels so overwhelming, but not just to the person experiencing it, also for the experience you're creating for your partner. So to help us cut through all of that confusion and get to the science of feeling like ourselves again, I am absolutely thrilled to introduce Dr. Tiffany Ruder. Dr. Ruder is a specialist in perimenopause, menopause, and hormone health. She is a holistic hormone health coach, as well as a doctor of pharmacy. And today she is going to break down exactly what is happening in our bodies, how we can optimize our hormones to help us actually feel like ourselves again, and to find that connection in our marriage so that we don't feel like we are on two completely separate islands by ourselves. So welcome. I am so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
All right, we're going to just dive right in here. I want you to explain, because this is one of the things, and I kind of explain this in an overarching way for men and women as I'm coaching marriages, that there's a 28-day cycle that a lot of people don't know. A lot of men don't understand that it's like, didn't you just have a period? So I want you to give tools for them, but also explain this 28-day cycle and how it works so that we're all kind of on the same page.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite subjects, actually. So definitely something we're not taught at all, like in high school or health class, or really just throughout life, but it's something so important for women to know and for men as well. So I always like to open by saying men are like the sun, women are like the moon. So men's hormonal rhythms run roughly on a 24-hour clock, which is great. So they can hit the 5 a.m. club and go work out early in the morning. So they can show up the same every day to work with the same energy and the same performance and over and over and over again. For women, however, we're kind of like the moon. So we run over phases over roughly 28 days, which means we don't have the same hormones showing up every single day. They actually fluctuate over that 28-day cycle. And while it is focused around reproduction, these hormones, estradiol, testosterone, and progesterone, we actually have receptors or little locks, and the hormones are the key. So we have little locks and keys all over our body. So we have them in our brain and even in our liver and our gut. We have them in our bones and in our heart. So while we may talk about this from a reproductive standpoint, about actually being able to carry on life and have a baby, it is important to understand that these hormones affect so many body systems. We can't just look at it in isolation. So when we think about the cycle, most people just think about the period, right? Those 5 to 7 days of bleeding. And we're not really thinking about all the other days in between. So that first day of your period is your first day of your cycle. Highly encourage every woman to start tracking your cycle. Very important, especially as we get into perimenopause. Day one of bleed or of your period is going to be your day one of cycle. And that starts what we call the follicular phase. This is going to be essentially over the next 2 weeks, preparing the body to release an egg during ovulation. For those first several days, obviously women don't feel very well because they are shedding their uterine lining, and your hormones, estradiol, testosterone, and progesterone, are going to be very low. So we feel kind of low, right? So we don't really have a lot of energy. Fatigue has set in. We might physically be in pain, right? There's a lot of cramping. It's a lot of muscle contraction to remove that uterine lining. And our stress resiliency is kind of low as well because we don't have some of those hormones to help support our nervous system as well as our neurochemistry. So things like serotonin and dopamine, oxytocin, those hormones aren't really there to help us with drive, with motivation, with the go get it attitude. And that's why it can be challenging during the period week because we just don't really feel like ourselves. Not to mention the fact that we might physically be in pain. So from a partner perspective, it is really nice when our partner is a little bit of protecting our peace, giving us a little bit more time for rest, taking a few extra like to-do list items off of our plate, not only because we physically might not be able to stand up and cook a big meal, right? Like we might be physically in pain. We might not have the mental processing capacity to schedule appointments and play dates and do all the things like we normally would do. So it's really nice when our partner can just maybe pick up 1 or 2 things that week just to give a little extra support and take a little bit off of our plate because hormonally we're not quite supported that way. And then we start moving into like peak follicular week, which is like my favorite. And this is when estradiol and testosterone are going to start increasing. And these hormones make us feel confident. They bring our brain back online. Everything is like computing correctly. We are more social. We're ready to go out. Our skin actually starts to clear up. In some studies, they have shown that women like are the most attractive right before ovulation, which not shocking. That's
Makes
God's
sense.
design, right?
Yeah.
We're ready to find that mate. So we're a little bit more social. We're a little bit more confident. Our brain is clear. We can handle multiple tasks at one time. Like this is when we are juggling all the balls and it seems like we are almost limitless. And so this is a great time, again, from partner perspective. Be playful, go on that date, learn a new skill. Maybe you guys go to a cooking class together or a dancing class together. This is also a really great time because your stress resiliency is higher, because your motivation from testosterone and estradiol motivation's higher, you're able to have more rational conversations. This would also be a great time to maybe have a tough conversation, maybe something you haven't touched on for a little while. It might be time to circle back to that because you're going to be in a more rational and resilient state that you can thoroughly discuss that conversation before you fly off the handle. And this is also a great time to do a lot of financial planning or future planning because, again, your brain is online, you're ready, you're even excited about the plans, you have more motivation. I just kind of say it's like you have better computing capacity, like you're running on all the gears. So, again, from a husband standpoint, like this is a great time, again, to just kind of redate your spouse, like go out on that fun date. Enjoy that playful time together. So this is more like where you're kind of like a partner. So before he was kind of a protector, and now he's a little bit more of your provider. Right before you ovulate, release an egg that could potentially get fertilized. This is also, as women, this is about 3 to 5 days. So we're talking days maybe like 11, 12, 13 of your cycle, and ovulation is somewhere around day 14, not perfect, until about day 15, 16. This is also when women are going to be probably the most interested in sex. Again, God's design, we're releasing an egg. So this is going to be also when maybe her libido is a little bit higher. You're going to notice she's maybe a little more frisky or touching a little bit more just because, again, a little bit part of our innate design was that we would be with our partner. And so from a partner standpoint, I like to call this the pursuer phase, right? So get your hair cut and clean the car and make yourself look good, or maybe flex a little bit more when you're doing the dishes, right? Like make yourself that desirable mate because she's scanning the environment and looking and saying, okay, I'm getting ready to release an egg. I better have the best mate for this egg. And you want all eyes on you. So maybe put in just a little bit of effort and be that pursuer of your spouse again. So that kind of takes us first through the first 2 weeks. And then after that, it is all about essentially the potential for pregnancy. So that egg has been released, it potentially could get fertilized and become an embryo that gets implanted into the uterus. So things will shift. Estrogen and testosterone take a huge rapid decline, which women might feel. So they may feel like fatigue all of a sudden, stress resiliency is out the window. They kind of feel like they got hit by a bus because all of a sudden they were fun and flirty and having a great time. And now it's like it's gone. And we're talking within a course of 24 or 48 hours, like very quickly, it can disappear. So just, again, give yourself some grace, anticipate that decline, but just kind of know like now you're going to be transitioning to a phase where progesterone is going to be the star. And she is our girl of calm, cool, and collected, which is what we want to stay and feel. But she also helps us slow our roll because if we were potentially pregnant, we would need to make sure that we protect that life. So your hunger might increase. You might notice that you're hungry more often. You might notice that you don't want to be as social. You don't go out as often. You don't really feel like being around a lot of people. You're a little bit more inward and drawn in. And again, that's because the progesterone is there to help you kind of nest a little bit, potentially, for a potential embryo. So some of the actions kind of mimic that. So you don't feel as social. You don't want to do as many big gatherings. This is more of like a cuddle on the couch time. So this is a time where you're going to order the food because you might not really feel like cooking a big meal. And this is going to be where you have more cuddle time and really look at the neurochemical oxytocin. So if oxytocin is high, progesterone stays high, stress resiliency stays high. If progesterone decreases and oxytocin decreases, our ability to handle stress just completely changes. And so we see more rage, snapping at the people we love. We're tired. We get really emotional. All of a sudden, we're just fine. And then we're super upset or we're super sad. And some of those quote unquote PMS symptoms can start coming in if our hormones aren't showing up the way they're supposed to, if we're not having that balance, if we're not having those inputs that show that we're safe, we're secure, we could potentially have life. So again, from the provider partner standpoint, I say more of a provider, right? So you're going to provide safety. You're going to maybe take a few things off of her plate so she can rest more. You're not going to push her to go out if she can avoid it. Maybe we're not doing a bunch of play dates. Maybe we're just not doing a lot of dating. We're staying indoors and having more of that like one-on-one cuddle session versus a big fancy dinner out with a lot of people. So those are kind of the 4 phases. And then at the very end, progesterone, if there is no pregnancy to maintain, progesterone will rapidly decrease, which cues the uterus to shed the uterine lining, and we start our period all over and we start the cycle all over again. Because of those shifting hormones, this is why we kind of feel different day to day and week to week, which can be really hard, which I'm sure you have seen, as high achieving women when you're like functioning at this high level and you're juggling everything. And then a week later, you're hit like blindsided, right? The fatigue sets in. You don't want to go out. You don't want to do the thing. You are regretting that you said yes to plans. I do that all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I book that? I don't want to go now. So it's really with my women that I work with, we talk a lot about cycle syncing. It's about anticipating those changes that are going to come in your cycle so you're not overbooked during a time that you don't want to be out. So it is, it's kind of using those tools and that strategy so you can use your cycle as a super.
The way I like to think about it is the seasons that
Yes.
in your follicular phase, you're like
Yeah.
that springtime of
Yes.
like, okay, yeah, let's plan, let's do the fun things. It's, I've got the energy. Summertime, we want to do all the things. We want to do, all the people things, all of
Yes.
that. And then it starts luteal phases like fall.
Yes.
And
Yeah, exactly.
now I'm going to start kind of eating more to start to prepare for the winter and start
Yes.
slowing down and finishing up projects. And then winter is I'm a hibernating bear and do not talk to me. Like,
Yeah, pretty much.
that's kind of where we're at. I have heard recently that if you eat steak on the first day of your period, that you will not feel like garbage for the rest of your period. Is that true?
So steak is very high in iron, and having a period puts you in like iron deficiency. I mean, let's just be honest, you're shedding a lot of blood. Now, I personally like to have like my red meats just a little bit before my period to ensure that those iron stores are already elevated. So when you're in that like last 3 to 5 days of your luteal phase, when you know that your cycle is coming, that is actually when I would consider starting to increase some of those red meats if you are a red meat eater. But you can also get iron from spinach and other iron rich foods. It doesn't have to necessarily be a steak. But with what you had said about the seasons, yes, definitely. So your period is kind of like winter. So think about those winter foods, like really hearty stews, right? Like things that are going to be like a little bit heartier, a little bit more like nourishing, heavier, warmer foods. So steak's a great option while you're bleeding because you are losing iron. It is important to restore those iron stores so you don't feel, some of that fatigue is part due to the fact that you're dehydrated, right? You're losing more than just blood, you're losing liquid. So also staying hydrated, but you're also losing iron, which directly can impact our energy stores. And so if you're not nourishing properly, you may notice that more during your bleed week. So definitely important to be mindful of that. Same with like the spring, right? Follicular. So think of your spring foods, the fresh veggies and chicken and fish, and everything's kind of raw and fresh, like salads. Same with summertime, like your summer foods, and then fall, luteal. Again, fall foods are typical like stews and warmer foods, things that are maybe cooking your vegetables. Those types of things kind of help align with your body because it aligns with the cycle that you're going through.
Makes sense. I never thought about it that way. That's good. Yeah. You mentioned tracking your cycle. For those who track, do you recommend an app? Do you recommend paying attention to bodily like symptoms? Like what do you recommend for that?
So lots of apps out there. I am very old school and I truly will just put a day on the calendar. So this is the day I started my period and now I'm tracking every day. So I know, okay, this is day 1, this is day 2. For most women, they probably not most women. Some women feel ovulation. So midway through your cycle, you might notice almost like cramping, sometimes like pain on one side. And so if you're having a tough time tracking, if things are a little irregular, you may be able to go with ovulation and just try and count that as day 14. But there are a lot of apps out there, even the Aura rings, like a lot of the wearables that people have, Aura rings or some of the watches, those will help track your cycle, let you know where you're at. If you're having like when you're first starting out, it may be very helpful to have an app that's kind of reminding you of where you're at in your cycle. For me, I still just go old school. Like I already know what day I started. I mark it on my calendar and now, but every day I'm doing a mini check-in. Where am I at in my cycle? What can I anticipate? What can I expect? Even just a couple of minutes of just that self-awareness, because it does help you know how to communicate with your spouse, know how to communicate with your kids, maybe plan your day a little bit differently than you might normally. And it really helps you kind of reconnect back with your body when so much messaging has been your period's an inconvenience, get rid of it, just get on birth control, it'll fix your cycle. Like there's so much messaging that women have been given over the years about their body, about their cycles, that it's a really nice way to actually connect back with this beautiful gift that God's given us.
I'm glad you said that because I would say about 10 years ago, I had been on birth control since I was 18. I had really
Hmm.
heavy periods when I was in high
Yeah.
school and stuff, and got on birth control then. And I was probably on it till I was like 35-ish, 34.
Yeah.
And with my first son, I didn't have any problems getting pregnant. Like first month that we even tried, I was pregnant. But with my second, I had been on birth control then for
Yeah.
really long time. And I mean, like we're talking other than that time period that I was pregnant with Mason, I mean, like it had been like 20 years. And
Yeah.
he struggled really bad to get pregnant with Zane. And then, I mean, like we went through all kinds of infertility for probably 2.5, 3 years, and then
Mm.
finally got pregnant with Zane.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was that when I was on birth control, I was not connected to my body at all.
Yes.
Like I could
Yeah.
not tell you, people would be like, well, what about the discharge that you have around ovulation?
Mhm.
I don't know. Do I even
Yeah.
have that? I don't even know what's going
Yeah.
on. And
Yeah.
then once I got off birth control, now I'm at the point, Zane's 5, where I can tell you exactly what side the egg was released
Yeah.
on. I can tell you,
Yes.
like, I'm just so much more in touch and
Yes.
and it's nice, but at the same time, I think I've got it all figured out, except for the fact that usually I can track my cycle on it when I ovulate, but
Mhm.
also the first day of my luteal phase, I am a raging jackwagon. Like
Mhm.
everything. irritates me. Everything.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I had to really work with my coach as well, because it wasn't like most people are really grumpy on their menstrual cycle. Not
Mhm.
me. It was the
Yeah.
week before, the
Yeah.
luteal
Sure.
phase. I was
Yeah.
just like, I will eat your face if you look at
Yeah.
me wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Throat
So what
punching.
is happening there? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to
So
punch everyone.
yeah.
So
So a little bit of what we talked about with the stress resiliency and progesterone. So you need to have a really good ovulation, meaning that so after you ovulate in the ovary, it makes a corpus luteum, and that actually starts secreting the progesterone. So we need to have good ovulation, but as we get older, and go through perimenopause and estradiol's fluctuating, some of the signals to our ovaries to ovulate. I'm not going to get too much into the science, but essentially we would have what we call weaker ovulations. So while we're still ovulating, we're not maybe forming a quality corpus luteum to secrete quality progesterone. And especially in perimenopause, the first hormone to not show up and shine the way we'd like for her to
right.
is progesterone. So she really helps us stay calm, cool, and collected. But when she's not around, then our stress resiliency just it's almost non-existent. So little things will set us off. Gonna throat punch everyone. How dare you chew your cereal that way? Like it's really tough because we don't have that hormone at a level that we would want it to help combat some of that stress. And that is why some of these new tools, like understanding that luteal week, it's going to be very important nutrition wise that we're feeding our body, right? Because we can get very hangry, which is going to add into it. And you're already going to be more hungry during that phase. So if we're pushing through, if we're ignoring hunger signals, if we're not feeding ourselves properly, if we're doing a lot of fasting or a lot of cardio, that's very stressful on the body. At some point, the body won't recognize the difference between good stress and bad stress. It's just all stress. And especially in midlife, as we've had so many stressors and we're heading into almost like a burnout, and our body is shifting and changing, and our hormones are changing in a way that we are not used to, the body again doesn't feel very safe. So we get kind of stuck in that fight or flight mode where it doesn't even understand like what signals are safety, what signals are not safety. And so it's really important that we are consistent, but we are looking at nutrition, we're looking at our sleep. If we are all a little bit sleep deprived, and women need a lot more sleep during luteal phase and a lot more sleep than men. So it is a complete like BS saying to say that women and men need the equal amount of sleep. We need a completely different amount than men. But we tend to run on less than men, as it turns out, because we're still managing a household and a business and going to work and taking care of the aging parents and we're taking care of the little kid. Like we are doing so much that we are sleeping probably less than our male counterparts when we actually need more. So sleep depravity, stress resilience is going to go out the window.
Makes
If
sense.
we are not nourishing our body, stress resiliency is going to go out the window. So it's really important. That's why like the work I do, it's so much deeper, but so much holistic because it's really just those small changes that we can make, those lifestyle habits, just a few little shifts. And again, it's not all month long. We're talking like 3 to 5 days that maybe you ask your partner, hey, can you handle kid pickup? Can you handle the kid drop off in the morning? Can you handle this activity? Or maybe just say no to the activity if you don't have to go and give
Yeah.
yourself a chance to rest and give yourself a chance to emotionally regulate, recognize what's going on, give yourself that breathing room, especially like younger kids, because they're always asking questions. Where's mom? Where's mom? Where's mom? What if we communicated with our kids? Hey, you know what? Dad's also in the house. This is a week where it's really important that you go to dad first before you come to mom. And you can just explain, you don't have to tell them all the birds and the bees and all the things about sex if you don't want to, but maybe you just communicate how you feel. It's not their fault. It's not anything they're doing, but hey, this is how we're going to make sure that we are supporting each other because in the family, in the Ruder family, we support each other. We're Team Ruder. Like this is how we support and love each other is also through communication about our needs and ways that we can show up for each other.
It's great. I love that. And that's something that little kids can understand too, is like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm really tired this week. Can you go to your
Yes.
dad first?" Like
Yeah.
that totally makes sense. I love that. Okay, you mentioned perimenopause, and this is something that like up until 10 years ago, I don't feel like
Hmm.
people even knew about this.
Yeah.
This wasn't
Yeah.
even a thing.
Right.
Um, and now it's something that you're hearing so much
So
about,
much.
but there's
Yes.
also so much conflicting information out there, and there's
Yeah.
like 412 trends and things that you
Yes.
can do and all of this different stuff. So I want to first kind of talk about what perimenopause is
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
why it's just now being studied. But then also, I'm going to ask you about some trends and we can do like
Yeah.
a love it or leave it kind of situation.
Yeah. That sounds like fun.
Okay.
So perimenopause really is those years from reproduction, reproductive years to essentially non-reproductive state, which is menopause. So first to define, menopause is 12 consecutive months of no cycle. So if you go 11 months and you have a period, start all over. So it's 12 consecutive months of no period. That is menopause. Everything after that is postmenopausal. There is about, and it's terrible because the science is, it's tough to do the research on it, but there is a period of about 3 up into 10 years of changes that are happening with those hormones of reproduction that start to have downstream effects. So as the estradiol is changing in our 28-day cycle, it affects the way your progesterone changes. And as those hormones start to fluctuate, as we go to a phase where essentially our ovaries are no longer producing these sex hormones, it's where the symptoms start to show up more than just hot flashes and night sweats. So I think now there's like 40 some different symptoms of perimenopause, but usually the most notable ones, again, tracking your cycle. So if you were a 28-day girl and now you're a 26-day girl, welcome to perimenopause. Like you're probably starting having those changes, right? Like cycle changes is probably going to be the first thing you notice. The stress resiliency. If for a long time you're like, man, I could just handle it easy peasy, but now I'm a crazy person a week before my cycle, perimenopause, there's something fluctuating going on below the surface that is causing your ability to continue to emotionally regulate, have your stress resiliency, like keep things calm, cool, and collected. That's another symptom. So it's recognizing those changes because they're so small and they're so subtle, not being able to get a good night's sleep. So you're waking up at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. and your brain is racing all night long. That is another sign because those hormones are fluctuating. Again, we have receptors for those hormones all over our body, in our brain, in our heart, in our bones, in our stomach, in our, that's why sometimes you see digestive changes or all of a sudden we're getting all these food allergies or sensitivities midlife because we're having
Mm,
changing hormones going on. So we need to look a little bit deeper, like what's going on. So that really is the perimenopause phase, is those hormones, slight hormone fluctuations that are causing some of these symptoms. So even things like itchy ears, I talked to a lot of women about that, dry skin, those change. Obviously, libido changes are part of that too. Just even our drive and motivation, we start feeling just a lot more like loss. We don't enjoy the things we once used to enjoy. Almost that burnout feeling where you're kind of just going through the motions. Again, we're having these changing hormones that affected everything from our confidence to our sense of self to how we perceived like how sexy we were. I mean, a lot is changing over that time. It's not just hot flashes and night sweats, which I think is what we typically thought were the telltale signs of it. It's a big change and it can be really hard on your relationships, which is a part of the reason why we're kind of talking today is because, all of a sudden your spouse is thinking like, this is not the woman I married because of those subtle changes that are happening. That's why communication is really important. Even if you don't have the language to how you feel, just recognizing that a shift has happened, a change has occurred, and maybe he doesn't have to fix it, right? Because men like to fix things. We don't necessarily need them to be the solution to our problem, but we need them to be a partner as we work through what it is we're going through. Help support us in a way when we ask you for support that you're able to show up for that, because we're trying to navigate it and we're trying to put language to something we were never given language to. I mean, we're never really taught about our bodies, let alone this phase of what's going on. So sometimes it is harder to discuss it because we don't have correct like vocabulary for it. So just as a spouse, just recognizing she's going through something, she's not okay, she's not fine, and just ways that you can be supportive as she's trying to navigate what is her best option for her.
yeah, that's a really big deal because divorce rates are actually going
Yes.
up in this time because
Yeah.
it's, you're not the type of person that I married. You've changed completely. I don't like your attitude, that kind of thing. Or you don't look the same. Your body has completely
Yes.
changed
I know.
and, you're just not, I'm just not sexually attracted to you anymore. And so then they get divorced and the woman is being punished for
Yes.
something that isn't like, is
She has
completely
no
out of
control.
control. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
completely out of her control. And it's really sad the way that this is working. Also, because now you're navigating grief of one of the hardest things that you will ever go through in life, but
Yeah.
also not understanding, yeah, I know you're not sexually attracted to me because I'm not attracted to me when I look in the mirror either. You know what I mean? So
Yes. Yeah.
all of this, the belly fat and the
Yes.
what's going on with me and why am I eating, an entire bag of chips because I'm a raging
Yeah.
person at
Yeah.
this. Like what is
Yes.
happening? So, yeah, it's a really big deal and I'm glad that we're talking about kind of all of this, but also what husbands can do to kind of like downshift and be like, okay, this is not what you think it is. It's not
Yeah.
that she's completely changed. It's that, there's things that are going wrong. And I'll be honest, this is why I like that you're a holistic doctor, because in my own experience, I feel like OBGYNs are not helpful. They're not
Yeah.
gynecologists are not helping
They-
with this whole thing. It's just
Yeah, they're not.
we go in and we say, hey, I'm not able to go to sleep until 2 a.m. because my sleep cycle's off, but then I want to sleep till 9 a.m. Like I've completely
Yeah.
shifted.
Shift. Yeah.
Like, I'm waking up with night sweat, and these are personal symptoms that I have. Like, I do not go to sleep until 2 a.m. I, or sometimes 1. And then, like I'm waking up and sometimes I have night sweats, sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
There's like what another thing that people don't talk about is the smells. Like
Oh
your
my
body
gosh, yes.
has a completely different smell sometimes, and you're like, what the
Yes.
F? Like, what is this?
Yes.
And you don't
Yes.
understand, and, like, you feel disgusting even though you're showering 2 and 3 times a day. There's
Yes.
just so many changes that
Yes.
you don't realize that are happening.
Yes.
Your hair falls out or you get really thick hair or
Yeah. Or
I
the
mean,
chin hairs show
oh my god, the chin hairs that are like
the
fishing
chin
wire.
hairs.
If you see
Yes.
a stoplight and she's, like, rubbing her chin, she is not thinking. She is thinking, "Where the hell did I put my tweezers?
Where did
Because
this
there is chin
where did
hair
this
here
go?
that needs
Yes.
to go."
What
There is
needs to
that.
go.
There is, man, there's just there's so many. Yeah,
So
the sex drive that either falls off a cliff or is, like, equivalent to that of an 18-year-old boy, like,
yeah.
it's one or the other. So, yeah, I mean, there's just so many different ones. So many different ones.
And I completely agree with the support because, from a male's perspective, and just because medicine in general has been so male centric, if a man just even goes to his primary care doctor, it doesn't have to be a urologist, it doesn't have to be, a specialist, just their primary care and says, hey, I'm having some low libido issues, I'm having some sleep issues, I'm kind of having some energy issues, immediately they are given like testosterone replacement therapy and Viagra. Like it is like the formula and they are sent on the way. So they are primed and optimized honestly for sex and for better energy and for longevity and better confidence. And a woman has to go to probably like 10 different providers before she's even listened to or seen or heard or even taken seriously. Or she's just handed another band aid fix. Oh, go on birth control. Let's do an ablation. Let's just take away your period. Let's put you on an antidepressant. Let's
Let's
give you
just
a
go ahead and
sleeping
get you
pill.
a first hysterectomy because, like, you're done having
Yes.
babies. You don't need to
You're
get
done
her
having babies. Let's just remove it and you'll be done with it. Yes. So
yeah.
it is really challenging because we are also not given all the proper tools, resources, and options. A lot of women feel very forced into one modality over another. And that's a big part of my platform is just education. There are more options out there besides a major surgery, besides a pill. There are other tools in our toolbox. I definitely want to make sure I'm educating women on that so they can make the most informed decision about what feels most aligned for their health and their values and their longevity and what it is that they want to, continue to feel the way they want to feel as they go in the future. And it's tough because we're still kind of pitted, like a lot has changed over the past 10 years. And I love the way that medicine is going, but it is still very, it's not quite there when it comes to the support that women receive when the man is now like ready to go and the woman's not quite there because they haven't addressed libido issues. We're not talking about the changes that occur. And even this, like you said, the smell changes, the body confidence changes. It's not just about like not having a sex drive. It's the fact that I don't feel sexy when I feel stinky and smelly and a chin hair and the fat has completely changed all over my body. And like it's also an internal process and a grief because we're kind of grieving this loss of who we kind of were 20 years ago.
It's an identity
And
shift completely.
it is. And if we're not stepping into this as our power decade, if we're just being told constantly it's part of aging, you're just getting, you're just getting older, your labs are normal, there's nothing we can do. Like we're kind of getting gaslit into thinking like this is as good as it gets. And that's not true, right? So like it's just almost a
We're kind of
depressing outlook. Yes.
we're
Yeah.
kind of getting gaslit. I think we're
Yeah.
straight up getting
Yeah, or
gaslit.
yes.
Like,
Yes. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's really important, like the work I'm doing, it's really about educating. This is our power to get. This is when you get to set new boundaries. This is where you get to rewrite new contracts and agreements. This is where you get to step into a new identity of who you are, what you're tolerating, what you're not tolerating, and how you are going to continue that self-improvement and who you want to show up and be in the next 5, 10, 15 years, especially if you have daughters, especially if you have younger kids. Like what kind of legacy do you want to leave for them about who you are as a mama and a woman, as opposed to maybe what some of our parents did or didn't do for us when they were going through that?
yeah, definitely. Okay, for this next segment, I kind of want to do
Yes.
love it or leave it
Love it.
things.
Leave it. Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to give you a topic of
Okay.
like a trend that's coming, that's out there, right? And I want you to talk about love it, here's why, leave it, here's why. All right. So, first one is beans. I have heard that people are eating like 2 cups of beans for breakfast every morning because it like all the fiber in the beans, like it washes out the extra estrogen in your body.
Okay. So love the concept of high fiber complex carbohydrate. So love that idea. This is when I would use it strategically, not 2 cups every morning, because good God, you will be so gassy for the whole
Yeah.
day. Like good luck with that.
And
But
somebody
so
said that eating that and having your stomach like be that way is like your stomach is throwing a party because now all of the your gut lining is like getting good bacteria or something like that.
So it is important to feed the gut bacteria, and fiber helps. And like, I'm not going to get into too much of the nuance of that, but here is why probably where some of this information started. After what we talked about follicular phase, right? Estrogen's peaking, testosterone's peaking. Estradiol is going to be its very highest right before you ovulate. After that, it's going to take a plummet, and our body will use up that estrogen, or it's supposed to use up that estrogen, metabolize it, and excrete it. And we excrete it through our bowel movements. What I have seen with women, A, they're not having a bowel movement every day. And B, we are over proteined and under fiber. So a lot of women understand the value of protein, but we're not really harping on the value of fiber. And we need that fiber to break down our protein and help metabolize and excrete that estrogen. Because if it doesn't get through a healthy metabolic pathway or healthy broken down pathway, it will recycle in our body. So those receptors, those little locks, instead of a pretty healthy estradiol binding into that lock as a key, now we have these ugly, gross, like fake estrogens, like they're kind of broken down and ugly, and now they're binding. And that, when we have too much estrogen, we call it estrogen dominance because we have all these recycled estrogens that are not excreting, not to mention all the fake estrogens in our environment, like all the endocrine disruptors that we're dealing with. So this is when we see heavier periods, super heavy periods, clots with our periods. This is when we have breast tenderness. This is when we're super moody right before a period. If we're not properly excreting that estrogen through a healthy pathway, we are recycling it and really just becoming almost too much estrogen for the progesterone to balance out. And that's the other thing too. Progesterone and estradiol are kind of like a yin and yang. They need to balance each other out. And it's not that you're not producing maybe enough progesterone, but your estrogen, your total amount that you keep recycling is just too high. And so the fiber, especially right after ovulation, so the whole luteal phase, I love seeing lots of complex carbohydrates, which again would be like your legumes, like your beans. And I like seeing a lot of fiber, mainly the cruciferous vegetables, because they have a component that helps your body break down and remove that estrogen. But really, any fiber is good fiber. But girlfriend, if you've only ate about 5 to 10 grams of fiber a day, you can't go up to 30 grams of fiber in like one day because you will be so sick and so gassy. So like if you're starting at 5, let's move up to 8 grams and then up to 10 and then up to 10 or 12. But ideally you're getting about 30 grams of fiber a day, which I know like probably most women are not doing. So just really being more cognizant of when you're cycle are you going to increase that fiber, and then doing it slowly such that your body can actually handle it, metabolize it, and excrete it. So love the concept. I would use it strategically during luteal phase. And don't do 2 cut girl, just don't make yourself sick. Like, go slow.
2 cups. I was like, I'm gonna
Mm,
go with that. That sounds
no, thank you.
disgusting.
I will leave the 2 cups, but
Yeah,
I will work on increasing the fiber.
yeah. GLP-1s. They're all the
Oh,
rage now.
how much time do we have? So, as a pharmacist, fully aware of GLP-1s, we've been using them. I mean, Trulicity came out when I was like in pharmacy school. So, I have seen them for a very long time. They have a lot of great benefits, for sure, for sure. I have seen it just done very poorly. And I think that's where I get concerned. So, GLP-1s,
Out of them just and getting them in the mail. Like, I've seen
and
that so much.
it's tough because I also work at a compounding pharmacy. We don't do sterile, but like if it's not compounded appropriately in the most sterile environment, remember you're injecting into yourself. So if there's a microbe that you're injecting into yourself, that's cause for infection. So please be cautious. Work with a provider who has either done a course as a peptide certified provider, someone that's maybe board certified in pet. Like you want someone who is not just doing it as a cash cow, because they need to monitor. The biggest thing that happens is your body will waste protein before it wastes fat. And the problem is osteoporosis is a number, like I have a whole other soapbox about osteoporosis, but 1 in 2 women over the age of 50 will suffer an osteoporotic fracture. Like you will have a bone break. So
Mm,
between you and me over the age of 50, either you're going to have the bone break or I'm going to have the bone break. 1 in 2 women over the age of 50 are going to have an osteoporotic fracture. And the best way to increase bone density after menopause is having plenty of muscle mass, which means weight lifting, which means if you're wasting protein from a GLP-1 and not fat, you're setting yourself up for an osteoporotic fracture 5 to 10 years down the road that you were not planning on. So please be with a provider who's going to absolutely have you on a nutrition plan where we are prioritizing protein and fiber. So you need to make sure that we're discussing how much protein you need to have, not just like at one meal, but throughout all your meals. You also need to make sure that they are monitoring blood sugar, like your sleep, like everything, because it can put the body in a very stressed state. This is why women are losing their hair. Within 2 months of starting GLP-1, all their hair is falling out because their body is now stressed. Again, good stress,
mhm.
bad stress. Sometimes the body doesn't know. It is stressed and it says, I'm throwing up red flags. Here's a red flag. You're losing all your hair. That means your body is in a stress state. So if you're not having someone that's supporting you, checking in with you, I would say checking in even weekly with you, you need to be very aware of how you're dosing it when you're scaling up. Also, you need to understand your nutrition is energy and it's vital for hormone production. And if I've talked to so many women who are now priding themselves on only eating about an 800-calorie meal a day because they're on a
Less than what
GLP-1.
my toddler eats.
That is like my breakfast. I'm just going to be honest. Do you think that is enough nutrition to power your brain, to power your hormones, to power your organs? That is not enough physical nutrition going into your body to do all the things we expect of your body. This is why you're losing your hair. This is why your skin is looking gross and saggy. Like it really needs to be with a provider who's very knowledgeable and someone who is going to support you every step of the way, not send you on one and I'll see you in a year or I'll see you in 6 months. It really needs to be done well. Which I mean, I've had clients on GLP-1s and just trying to support them. Also medication. So just as a side note, GLP-1s slow what's called gastric emptying, the rate at which your stomach starts to empty the contents of food. Well, how do we take most of our medications? Orally. So if you're on a blood pressure medication, if you're on an antidepressant, if you're on something for an arrhythmia, if you're on a sleep medication, that rate of emptying into your intestines is now shifted because it delays gastric emptying. So your medications might not be working the way that they used to. Um, you may notice like a shift in when the onset is happening. So that's another thing. Like you need to make sure your provider is fully aware of all the medications you're taking because it might have to change dosing of your medication. It might have to change from if you were on, say, like a what we call an XR, like an extended release formulation, you might not need to go on something that's more immediate release because the extended release is kind of already happening because it's sitting in your gut for a long time.
Right. Yeah.
So we do need to look at all of that. You can't just fill out a 5 questions survey online and think that like you're just going to be completely safe with it. So really just do your homework, do your research. I'm not completely opposed to them. I think they have their place. But I really want to make sure that you have the right support so you can be very successful on it and not come to me 2 months later with your hair falling out, your thyroid's all messed up, your gut is in the tank, and now we're starting at a really like really tough place to get you out.
Okay. So forgive my ignorance here,
No,
but
no.
is it possible with these GLP-1s that people are losing, like they look like they're losing weight and they look
Hmm.
like they're losing
Yeah,
fat,
yeah.
but it's actually not the fat that they're losing, it's protein and muscle mass that they're losing. So they're like a skinny fat now and that vascular
It
fat is still there?
that that's the biggest thing. So you need a provider that's monitoring your body composition because what I have seen is, yeah, you'll lose weight. Like the scale will completely change. And if you're only putting focus on a number on the scale, you're almost setting yourself up for like more disaster, right? So it's not just about the number on the scale. It is truly if you are wasting muscle over fat, then you are going to turn into more of that skinny fat. And that actually puts you at higher risk for other complications later. Because one thing that we do see in perimenopause with this like cortisol belly or perimenopause belly or midlife midsection, it is a body composition change. And the more we collect that fat tissue, what we call visceral fat. So visceral fat is inside of our like surrounding our liver. It's inside of like our guts. It's not the adipose, like the little pinch fat, like our subcutaneous where it's right on our skin. This is deeper fat.
Yeah.
That actually has very high correlation with more heart disease, more diabetes, more like more end of life, even dementia, more end of life issues. So if you're not being fully monitored on how your body composition is changing with your provider, you may be segueing into a point where again 5, 10 years down the road, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was going to do this to my body. And then it's really tough to kind of unwind from all of that. So again, we're just making sure you're doing your research and being aware of what is happening to your body. But that's why protein gets really prioritized to make sure that we have enough protein for muscle building. This is why you should be on a weightlifting program. If your GLP-1 provider is not talking about weightlifting, is not talking about your nutrition, I would probably get out of there and find someone who is. Because it's really important that we are prioritizing muscle building, increase muscle mass, lose the fat, right? So it's about wanting that fat loss, that body composition change where we are increasing muscle tone, decreasing body fat.
Okay. Next trend, HRT.
Love it, and yes and no. So a huge fan of bioidentical HRT. So that is where we are using like an estradiol patch because you're not producing as much estradiol, or a progesterone capsule because you're not producing as much progesterone. However, what I have seen is that these HRT clinics are popping up all over. Again, kind of like GLP-1. So it's a quick fix. They come in, they're not getting blood work done. They're not getting hormones tested. They're not even looking at metabolism. So that is the biggest thing for me is I want to know not just like what are your levels, but how are you breaking down these hormones? Because again, if it's not through a healthy pathway, you may end up causing more harm than good. So love BHRT, especially from a longevity standpoint. I don't think it necessarily needs to be the very first line. So if you come to me at my age at 39 and you're like, I'm ready for HRT, I'm going to talk to you about a lot more other things that we're going to look at. So we are going to look at those lifestyle changes. How are we managing stress? How are we sleeping? How are we handling nutrition? How are we scheduling our day? Are we even tracking our cycle? Are we cycle syncing? Are we supporting that? I'm going to look at all of that first before we really touch on the HRT subject because you will have better outcomes on HRT when you have that foundation. So when your metabolism is dialed in, once you get put on HRT, you'll be able to utilize and have better outcomes on that estradiol patch, as opposed to what I've seen a lot of times at the pharmacy, they'd have to keep increasing the dose and increasing the dose and increasing the dose and increasing the dose because their body isn't metabolizing it correctly. It's not absorbing it correctly. It's not able to utilize that HRT correctly. So my goal is let's get you like in a great foundation of health and wellness. So when we add on that HRT, we can go very low dosing. We just need enough to help manage symptoms and longevity. So I do love it from a longevity standpoint that it can protect heart from heart disease. It's showing prevention of dementia. osteoporosis prevention, like all those end of stage issues that women are faced now that we're in postmenopause. It absolutely helps with that. I'm a huge fan of it. I'm not a huge fan of you just coming in wanting hormones and not doing any changes, right? So it's about the idea of what frame of mind are you in, and what other supportive measures are we taking to make sure you have the most success on HRT.
That creatine.
All for it. But always a caveat.
There's
I
always
use
a caveat. Yeah.
always a caveat. I use creatine daily. I haven't really had a whole lot of issues with bloating or anything like that. There are a lot of studies showing that when you can get up to even 10 grams of creatine, that it even shows some like neuro effects. So like maybe more memory, more focus. Huge fan of it. Again, if you're having any sort of like GI issues, we also want to look at the quality of creatine. So I use one that is called that uses a product called Crea Pure, Pure. And I can even send you the link later if you want to link it. But that one has been water washed when they do the synthesizing process of it. A lot of creatine you'll find out there has been acid washed. So it's a different chemical process. And that may be why you might start having some symptoms when on creatine. Again, I would go low and slow. So you're not going to dump 10 grams the first time. You're maybe going to do like 3 grams a few days during the week and then work up to 5. And then you can kind of work your way up as tolerated. But again, I would be very cautious about what the synthesis process of your creatine, just to make sure you have good quality creatine you're using.
Good to know.
But yeah, love it.
Eating certain macros with certain timing. So like 30 grams of protein, 30 carbs, 10 grams of fat every 2 hours kind of thing.
Like macros, 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking is going to be
I was just giving
my number one.
Randomly,
Yeah. So 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking for protein synthesis first thing in the morning, and it's a cue to your body that it's time to wake up. So it helps calm the cortisol awakening response, all the things. It helps support that. That is my number one I'm going to focus on. As far as the other stuff, I'd probably honestly might refer you out to a nutritionist if there's a specific goal in mind for the other meals. But I always like to see protein, healthy fat, and fiber at every meal. And then after that, we can kind of talk about the nuances.
Okay. Seed cycling.
Yeah, all for it. Love it. Again, each to their own. So like some people might not notice a big difference with it, but it's very supportive. Now, at the end of the day, you're just going to increase your fiber, and you're also going to increase, all like some of those good fats that come from the seeds. So definitely seeing lots of benefits with seed cycling. If you can get dialed in and consistent with it, it's not going to happen the first month, but after 3 to 4 months, you might notice a big difference with it.
Awesome. Progressive overload.
Yes, as long as we're making sure that we have deload sessions. And for me, I like to sync it with my cycle. So I'm going to progressively overload up to ovulation when I have estradiol and testosterone at its peak, when I'm my strongest. And then I'm honestly going to spend about 2 weeks deloading. So it looks different than a traditional training model where you're maybe doing progressive overload over 4 to 6 weeks. I do mine shorter because I want to do it in aligned with my cycle when I can use my hormones to my advantage.
Okay, kind of talk a little bit about how that looks, because I've noticed that like week of follicular phase, I feel really strong. Ovulation, I'm going up in weight.
Yeah.
Luteal phase, my energy falls off a cliff. And so I'm like, let's just walk, or let's just
walk it out. That's exactly what I do. So
that week is not even a good time. And then menstrual cycle, I'm not even in the gym.
Yeah. If you feel like you want to be in the gym during menstrual week, some women like it, some women don't. I always like sauna personally if your gym has one during menstrual week. But yeah, so definitely increasing weight. You like follicular phase as you're getting right into ovulation, you're like you can definitely start pushing that weight. Like if you're really ready to challenge and you have good form, right? Like it's all the caveats. But I love pushing it. That's when I'm going to hit a PR. Whether it's running or if it's weightlifting, that's when I'm going to do it is when my estradiol is working my favorite and my testosterone, because you are having like the best good, feel good hormones that you are able to push it and your body can go through that good stress adaptation. As soon as that drops off, so luteal phase, when progesterone is trying to scream at you, slow your roll. So that means for me, I still like to weight lift, but I am going to decrease weight and increase repetitions. And I'm probably not going to go to failure. And I'm probably just going to be like, okay, 10 reps, this felt good. Like I want to just feel good during luteal phase. I don't want to leave the gym exhausted. I don't want to feel burnt out the rest of the day. So it's really about like finding that activity. And maybe really it's a great time if you want to do yoga, you want to do some Pilates, but truly, like you said, walk it out. Luteal phase is you should be walking all the time. Luteal phase is a great time to walk it out because, again, it's going to help with that oxytocin. It helps support the progesterone. It gives you that solemn reflection time that your body is already kind of craving. And again, I really like sauna during luteal phase as well, just because I just find it very nourishing and like warming, I guess, to me. I just feel like it feels nourishing to me. But yeah, I don't want my women trying for a PR during luteal phase. And I don't want them then to feel like, why can't I keep up? What's wrong with me? I feel so weak. This is a time where you give yourself grace and space to say, hey, you know what? This is my deload. This is my pause. And then next month, I'm going to come back stronger, right? So it's just kind of rewiring that thought process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last one is the creams and things that you buy for vaginal dryness.
Can be helpful. Be cautious about overuse. My number one, if you are truly having vaginal dryness or vaginal issues, just go to your provider and talk to them about estradiol, or Estrace is the brand name, estradiol 0.01% vaginal cream. A lot of the vaginal dryness, it's all coming from the fact that your estradiol levels are fluctuating during perimenopause. And again, you have receptors for estradiol all over, but it definitely in our vaginal tract is our vaginal tract and even our vulva, our urethra. We are fully lined with a lot of estradiol receptors there. As estrogen decreases, those tissues become thinner. So truly there's like almost an atrophy. So the muscles kind of start to decrease. The tissues become thinner. So it's easier to get more infections. It's easier to get more UTIs. It's easier to have more pain during intercourse and vaginal dryness. So if you're noticing any of those symptoms, I would highly, highly, highly recommend talking to your provider. They're using it in nursing homes because it's helping to prevent UTIs, which it is very safe. It's very effective. Most providers are now more familiar with it. If you're having an issue, like reach out to me. I'll help give you some research, like whatever we need to do. But I would highly encourage the estradiol as a prescription. It is generic, so a lot of plans will help cover it. But that will be such a huge game changer. When you start using it regularly, it will decrease those infections. The pH changes as during perimenopause, your pH is changing. So you're more susceptible to different either UTIs or other like yeast infections. Vaginal estradiol can really make a huge difference with that. Don't be afraid to talk to your provider about that. Have an honest conversation about what's going on down below, because I feel like so many providers gloss over it. They're not really addressing it. So don't be afraid to be your advocate and say, hey, there is a change, and I want to talk about what my options are to help with
that. How can people work with you? What does working with you look like? Do you take insurance? All the things.
So I don't take insurance as a pharmacist. My provider level is a little bit different than what you would see for an MD. But my signature program is Chaos to Control. So it's 12 weeks of you and I working one-on-one. We do what's called Dutch testing, which is where we're going to look at those hormone levels and your metabolism of those hormones. And we're also going to look at your cortisol response. So I really want to see what's going on kind of like from a nervous system standpoint, a burnout standpoint. And then we work together 12 weeks again, holistically. And so that's like the number one way you can work with me directly. However, I have a free Facebook group, Optimize Her. You can find me on Instagram. DM me. I'm the only person that's running my Instagram, so I don't have like an assistant or anyone. So if you send me a message on Instagram, I will be right there to message you back. I'm more than happy to connect with you. I'm the Optimize Her pharmacist. And on June 29th, I'm having a free masterclass live on Zoom at 12 o'clock. And it's going to be normal labs, no energy, now what? So what we're not telling women in their 40s about how to kind of maintain and get that energy back. Love to connect with you there. So I'm out there in the cyberspace. Mainly Facebook and Instagram are going to be the best ways to find me.
Awesome. I think it's been so overwhelmingly helpful. I think women are actually going to be like, holy crap, I understand what's going on with me now, versus being in the dark and feeling like, why do I feel alone in this? So
yeah, good.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was such an honor. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
We've all seen it. The messy social media messages, the public tea spilling, and the absolute embarrassment of finding out that your life is a lie through a Facebook post or an Instagram message that your spouse thought was hidden. What if it didn't have to be like that, though? What if you could find out before their affair got too deep? Statistics show that over 20% of marriages deal with infidelity, and most affairs last for years because they thrive in the dark. It's time to turn the lights on. Verified.com is the world's first searchable relationship registry. It's not just an app, it's a digital boundary for your marriage. When you register your spouse on Verified, you are claiming your relationship on a global scale, whether you're talking, you're dating, or you're married. If another man or woman is being told your spouse is single or divorced and they search for your spouse on the registry, they find you instead. Now, here's the game changer. Verified allows you to speak one-on-one and directly with that other person. No gaslighting from your spouse. No he said, she said. No, oh my God, you went through my phone. How could you betray my trust like that? And zero social media drama. Just the truth, person to person, before things go too far. Don't wait for that gut feeling to become a nightmare. Because even if you think your spouse would never, there's an even better chance that you just never know. Register your spouse today using the link in the show notes and lock in your legacy to protect your peace.
This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional counseling or therapy. Every couple story is unique, so take what's helpful and leave the rest. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that neither I, Cameron Thompson Alaricki, Married and Connected, or Recognizing Potential Coaching are responsible for any outcomes related to what you apply from this show, especially if you are not a client of mine.